Okay, I'm talking with Arthur, and he is telling me a really interesting story to help. This could help build up people's faith that as we step out and work for God, we can get money coming to us. God will help support us in those endeavors. So tell me, Arthur, what about that story again? How that happened?
Pastor Tukai and his wife went on a fast, and the Lord gave them their mission. And Pastor Tukai talked to the Lord and said, I will not be paid to serve you. And to this day, he is taken care of no matter what. And even money will just show up in his bank when he needs to pay rent or whatever. Um, he doesn't get paid one penny through tithes or anything. The Lord just takes care of him.
Right. That is so helpful to know. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Okay, here's the next story. Um, I brought a young man. Oh, he's actually in his mid 40s, mid to late 40s, to a certain church where one of the pastors, both pastors actually, connect really well to God. And but one of them at the end was inspired to give him a $20 bill. And she said, I believe God wants you to have this. And the person I brought was well dressed. He had taken a shower. You couldn't tell that he maybe needed some money, but I know he needed money, even for gasoline money and food money. So that God can just talk to somebody. So if people are very well connected to God, we can help one another really well that way. And this person that the $20 bill got given to, I know, was doing work that was pleasing to God. He was ministering to people. Some of them were homeless in need. He pointed pointed out ways to move forward. So the first story, well, there's a few stories in the Bible's book of Exodus when the Israelite family of Israel, the relatives that of Jacob, whose name is Israel. Anyway, they were leaving Egypt, and in the Bible it says there were 600,000 men, plus women and children, and lots of animals. And so they're in the wilderness. It might have taken a month to get to the promised land area, but because of them not really trusting God at that time, they ended up being led to stay in the wilderness for 40 years. So in that early on, in that period of time even, or throughout that period of time, at one point they were so thirsty. Moses hit the rock, was led by God to hit a rock the first time. He was led to hit it with a staff, and water came out of it. They ate water. Okay, and then another time, they were complaining and hungry, and they got lots of birds, pheasants, like a huge amount. That was seemed to be the result of them asking for food like that, and then most of the time they got the manna, which means what is it in Hebrew, and it kind of sounds like tofu in a way. It was tasteless. It landed on the ground at, well, they would have got minerals. If it was protein, they would have got some minerals there from the ground. So anyway, that they got that every day except for more on Fridays, so they could take the day off on Saturday and not have to collect it. So that was another example. Now there's an example of a orphan helper, George Muller, who moved from Germany to England, and this was right after the influenza or during the influenza times in the early 1900s. And he started helping orphans, and eventually he had 200 orphans in a bigger house. He started real small, but they would need food quite a lot. And so they would pray. And one of his stories was they prayed, and then there was shortly thereafter a knock on the door, and a man with a wheelbarrow of potatoes had felt moved to bring him some food. I mean, probably the neighbors, knew he needed it all the time anyway, but it could have been a specific request that the man with the wheelbarrow and the potatoes had heard in order to do it right then after their prayer. So he was righteous and doing really good work for the Lord. So that would be possibly part of it. And also the guy who grew the potatoes was being righteous, doing things aligned with the Lord's will, like giving to the orphans, helping the poor, listening, being quiet and listening to what God wants us to do. So, thanks for listening.